Tell you what, guys, I sure could use a nap. Hello there, people of the internet. How's everybody doing today? I'm doing alright, thanks for asking. So, I'm out here doing comparison videos between a bunch of World War II era rifles. You know, these are rifles that have gone up against one another in combat. And I started off with the Garand and the Kar98, which absolutely saw each other on the battlefield. And I just kind of kept making videos from there, and I'm still doing that. So now we are checking out the Kar98, since I have it out here. This is a 1944 production, and we are going to be putting it side by side next to the Mosin Nagant 9130. These rifles absolutely saw each other on the battlefield, and I'm getting the feeling that they are probably not going to play very nice sitting next to each other on the table here. According to some people, guns tend to kill, and they have absolutely no correlation with the people that are actually holding them. So these guns are obviously going to feel very emotional being next to each other right now. Anyway, in all seriousness, let's go ahead and start the video. You know, every time I shoot my steel target down there, I lose a little bit more of it, and it's to the point to where it's probably about half the steel that it used to be. Of course, I've been shooting that thing for how many years now? That steel has absolutely served me well on this channel. Alright, so the Kar98, I've already talked about it in ad nauseum on this channel. 5 rounds, 5 rounds in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, but they typically are fed with 5-round stripper clips. These tend to fire like anywhere from 195 to 200 grain projectiles. It's sold military surplus ammunition, but there were so many countries out there making so much of this ammunition, like there's no one set type of ammo for the 8mm Mauser. The Model 98 action is incredibly strong. Just this right here is an absolutely fantastic bolt action rifle, and the 8mm Mauser ammunition that it fired was a rimless cartridge, unlike the 7.62 by 54 rimmed that the Mosin Nagant fired. Now, unlike something like the Enfield series, which I have right here, which was chambered in 303 British, also a rimless cartridge, the Enfield series has a double stack magazine, whereas the Mosin Nagant system is actually a single stack magazine, and it actually has a round cutoff system to prevent rim lock inside of the Mosin Nagant magazine. So the Mosin Nagant doesn't deal with rim lock in the same way that the Enfield series does, which is just a double stack magazine where rounds are right on top of one another. Now, that being said, these firearms are now collectible and expensive, and the ammunition that these fire is not nearly as cheap as it used to be, especially like the 303 British and reliable 8mm surplus. So if you want to help out the channel, help me make content, help me bring you guys more of this stuff right here, then in the description I have links to Utreon and Patreon. Please go check those out and consider supporting. Okay, let's go ahead and look into the Mosin Nagant. So the Mosin Nagant, much like its Kar98 counterpart that we're comparing it to right now, is fed from a 5-round stripper clip. However, the Mosin Nagant cannot hold 6 rounds, whereas the Mauser can hold 6 rounds if you decide to load 1 into the chamber. Just with the way that the magazine system is designed in the Mosin Nagant, like I said, you don't have to worry about rim lock most of the time. There are some exceptions if you have like a rim that has a deformity on it, or if your rifle's dirty and the cutoff system isn't quite working as well as it should. The Mosin Nagant also tends to be a pretty sticky system. In my particular case, I have managed to polish this one up very, very nicely, so I could run this actually very well. Now, the Mosin Nagant with its rimmed cartridges does not feed very easily, does not feed very easily from the stripper clip, but it feeds a hell of a lot easier than the Enfield series, especially if you get yourself some actual surplus stripper clips for the Mosin Nagant. There's reproduction Chinese ones out there that just don't feed very well, and the surplus stripper clips for the Enfield series are actually like a Parkerized metal, and they are not smooth at all. So trying to load rimmed cartridges just on a stripper clip like that is absolutely awful. But the Mosin Nagant right here, just shove that into our little stripper clip guide, and you should be able to just push these rounds right into the magazine. Stripper clip comes out, and you have yourself a rifle, 5 shots. Like I said, there's a system inside of the magazine to where you don't have to worry about rim lock. With another rifle like the Enfield series, you would have to worry about rim lock. However, with a rifle like the Kar98 series here, with your 5-round stripper clip, whenever you shove these bad boys in there, they don't have a rim that you have to worry about. So you got yourself your 5 rounds inside of your rifle just like that. Now I do want to point out, despite the fact that they both feed with 5-round stripper clips, you can actually just push the rounds in and then force your bolt home, and the rifle will actually eject the stripper clip. On the Mauser series, go ahead and open this back up here, whereas if you try loading your stripper clips into your Mosin and you still have your clip inside of your stripper clip guide, you cannot put that bolt home just because the clip is held in place with 2 little nubs, which it uses to hold the rounds inside of the clip using the rims of the cartridges. That's not really a problem with the rimless 8mm Mauser rifle. Now the clips themselves, clips for the Mosin are significantly larger. That's just the design of clip that is necessary for having a rimmed cartridge versus the rimless clip of the 8mm Mauser round. These are absolutely more consistent in ease. Like what am I trying to say here? They're easy consistently. Like if you've ever tried loading an SKS stripper clip, sometimes they will be very easy to load all 10 rounds into the chamber, and sometimes you gotta freaking fight that thing tooth and nail in order to get your rounds into your chamber. With the Mosin Nagant stripper clips, most of the time they're gonna be kind of a bitch unless you're rocking like some good quality stripper clips. I paid decent money to get myself some half-decent quality stripper clips there. But the Mauser rounds, basically any of your Mauser stripper clips are going to be pretty damn easy to load in, especially if you have yourself some good quality ones. Now both of these systems, I mean, they're both a cock-on close, or yeah. Now both of these systems, they're both a cock-on open, and they both bolt-action rifles that fire 5 rounds. I imagine that the speed that you fire these at would probably be very similar. However, that being said, the trigger on the Mosin Nagant tends to be absolutely awful. Anyone who's ever fired one of these rifles knows how terrible it is. Whereas the trigger on the Mauser tends to be more of a 2-stage trigger. It tends to be a lot easier to take well-aimed, accurate shots with the Mauser as opposed to the Mosin, which is just like one single stage trigger. You pull the trigger back until the rifle inevitably goes off. You have a very clear wall to break through with a Mauser system, and you just don't have that with the Mosin. You just kind of pull the trigger back until the rifle goes bang. And pulling the trigger back on the Mosin is a lot like dragging a grand piano over gravel. It's just inconsistent, and it jumps around a lot, and it just does not make for good, accurate fire at long range distances. Now that being said, the 40 yards that we're at right here, we should have no problems whatsoever making shots on our target. And there's that steel target that disappears a little bit more every time I shoot it. Oh my god! I forgot how much the Mosin recoils. There we go. Alright. Actually, what's my sight settings at? There we go, my sight setting was off there. I figured we were hitting a little high. Alright, make that bounce. The Mosin's definitely a stickier system than the Mauser. But that being said, the Mosin during the Second World War actually tended to lend itself better to cold environments than the Mauser. A lot of times the Mosin would continue to run, whereas the Mauser would stop functioning, but we are talking exceptionally cold environments. Alright, Mosin, kinda sticky, kinda slippery, not that great of a trigger, not that great of sights, I mean, it will run. You can load your rounds into it and it will function. The Mauser, definitely a much smoother, much more comfortable action. And the recoil impulse on this rifle compared to the Mosin that I literally just fired is actually substantially less. Oh goodness, here we go. Of course, this right here that I'm firing is surplus Turkish ammunition, and I think it's a 155 grain surplus Turkish ammunition. And I believe that the Mosin ammunition that I was firing was a 180 grain maybe. I'm not positive on that, but I think it was a heavier bullet, which explains why we had a lot of recoil with this bad boy. Actually, that yields a good point. Is this surplus ammunition reloadable? Or is this Berdan primed? Uh-huh. That is boxer primed right there. Hell yeah. I'm gonna gather up that 54 rimmed and reload it whenever I get the opportunity to. Alright, so as far as the two rifles go, like if you have a good amount of ammunition for either one of them, you could run them basically equivalent to one another. Like especially if you have stripper clips for all of them, like they're damn near identical. I would absolutely want the Mauser over the Mosin unless I was in an exceptionally cold environment. But I'm not. I'm here in Florida. So I would absolutely want the Mauser over the Mosin just because the trigger is a lot better. And the Mauser sights, still not that great. They are better than the Mosin's sights in my opinion. Now I am kind of blind and I can't see very well. And I noticed that the Mauser sight, the rear V-notch is just a little bit wider than the rear V-notch that is used on the Mosin. And as a result, they don't blend as much and I can kind of see my front sight on my Mauser in comparison to how easily I can see it on my Mosin here. The one thing that I don't like about the Mauser system is it requires a sling that is a proprietary sling. You need a buckle on your sling so it can slide in right there so you can go ahead and, you know, sling your Mauser properly. I think that's a piece of a stripper clip. I just found a piece of a stripper clip inside of my Mauser. Yes, I believe that is in fact a piece of a stripper clip. I'm not sure which clip, but that's exactly what that looks like. Okay, and this is just surplus stripper clips and ammunition that I'm firing here. I thought I heard something rattling around in there, but what was I talking about? My blind sight, I can just see the Mauser sights easier than I can with the Mosin. I like the trigger on the Mauser better than the Mosin. The Mauser does take rimless ammunition, so it is less of a hassle than the Mosin. The Mosin still has some issues with rim lock, not near the issues that you would get from something like the Enfield series, but as you saw from the beginning of the video, whenever I was trying to load a round into the chamber of the Mosin, I still had a slight issue with rim lock, but it did not give me all that much trouble. I was able to force the round through the rim lock. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below, and which rifle would you choose if you were in this particular situation? I imagine most people would probably pick the Mauser. It's just a better system, less sticky system, better trigger. But like I said, the sling system on the Mauser, I don't like that in comparison to the sling system on the Mosin. And I mean, the sling system on the Mosin, having some kind of dog collar sling would be, you know, the preference. But you can use literally any nylon sling, throw that bastard on there, and you are good to go. I mean, I guess you could do that with the Mauser's sling system, but man, that would be incredibly awkward to have around there while you're trying to use that rifle. It is possible, I will give you that, but it's definitely not ideal. It's way less of a hassle having an aftermarket sling like a nylon string or sling like I have on the Mosin here. Of course, if I had the option, I would throw down whatever rifle I had and I'd pick up this bad boy right here and I'd use my M1 Grand, or Garand, however it is you feel like pronouncing it. I'd use this to fight wherever it is that I was at, assuming that I had ammunition for it. I'd take the Grand, Garand, over the Mosin or the Kar98 every single day of the week. As a matter of fact, I already made a video on the Grand versus bolt action rifles. The speed and accuracy and whatnot of the bolt action rifle between the Mosin and the Mauser, it's so minimal that it really does just come down to preference. And in my preference, because of the sights and the trigger and the rimless cartridge, I would absolutely take the Mauser. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down below and which one it is that you would take. If we're talking about modern times and just going out and shooting it, 7.62 by 54 rimmed is definitely cheaper than 8mm Mauser, unless you're getting 8mm Mauser from the surplus market. But that 8mm Mauser tends to be finicky and not necessarily the most reliable. Occasionally you'll get yourself like some good batches of ammunition. Some countries out there are better than others, and you can always reload it for your own components and whatnot. But just generally speaking, if you're buying new production ammunition, 7.62 by 54 rimmed is way cheaper than buying new production 8mm Mauser. So for like modern standpoint, if I was getting a gun for practicality purposes, I'd go with the Mosin. But if this was back in the Second World War and I was on the front and I could choose between a Mosin or a Mauser, I'd probably take the Mauser. Let me know if your opinion differs. That being said, subscribe, like, share. Description, bunch of links, go look at it. I have a few other videos, a few other comparisons that I want to make here before the end of the day. So this one is going on for a little while, and I don't want these to go on for too terribly long. So I'm going to say, hey, thanks for watching, folks. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. I have some really interesting comparisons that I want to bring out, and I think the next one is going to be a little on the controversial side. It's going to get people fighting in the comments below, and it'll be fun to watch. I'll have to grab the popcorn and get ready for some nasty stuff. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.